Thank you, Mehmet. Last but not least, I'd like to invite Catherine Leung from Hong Kong Watch to take this stage.
Thank you, Kyle. Transnational repression takes many forms. It could be anything from harassing comments online to threatening emails, to threats on one's life, or even arrest warrants and bounties. And it can be perpetrated by individual actors or a foreign government. What they have in common, however, is that these actions are done to silence an individual for the benefit of a foreign state. This weekend, we saw an example of transnational repression, something that is so unthinkable for an incumbent MP to take part in, that brought into question whether elected officials take seriously the threat of transnational repression and foreign interference. To be clear, this is a parliamentarian suggesting to the public at a community event that a political opponent should be taken into custody at the Chinese consulate and handed over to a foreign regime that has shown no mercy for its opposition. This cannot stand in Canada. To effectively counter foreign interference and transnational repression, we need to take a zero-tolerance approach. The Government of Canada needs to show, in no uncertain terms, that any acts of foreign interference, whether it be electoral or seeking to harm an individual, will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. We will detect it, intercept it, and perpetrators will be brought to justice. Regardless of political affiliations, I am sure the news out of this weekend shocked Canadians. The issue of foreign interference and transnational repression cannot be one that divides Canadians along partisan lines. This is an issue not only of human rights, but of national security and sovereignty. If we cannot protect Canadians on Canadian soil from foreign actors seeking to intimidate, silence, or harm, we do not exercise any meaningful sovereignty over our territory. The impacts go far beyond just the individuals that are targeted. When a community sees this, what happens are two things. First, they see that there are consequences to speaking out, that even though they are in a country where freedom of expression is legally protected, an adversarial foreign state can seek to harm them for their speech. Second, when they see that their government is not standing behind the targeted individual, it brings into question whether, if they themselves are targeted, whether they can rely on their elected officials to do the right thing and protect not only them, but our Canadian values of freedom, democracy, and human rights. There is a lot of work to be done on countering transnational repression, and this report comes at a very timely moment. Thank you.
I would just like to conclude the press conference by stating that the report is available on our website, the Montreal Institute for Global Security, migsinstitute.org. You can find it there. I ask you to have a look and to share it on social media. And this is a crucial human rights issue. It's about the rights of Canadians being impeded by foreign states. So we have to stand up together, stand on guard for the together in this troubling part of history. But if there are any questions from journalists following us online, we'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We'll now start the question period. As a reminder, one question and one follow-up. We'll start online with Stuart Benson. Go ahead.
Hi there. It's Stuart Benson, Hill Times. I don't know how much there's been a bit of an update on the Paul Chiang story today from Carney saying Chiang still has his confidence, called it a lapse in judgment, that he's made his apologies, but called it a teachable moment. So I sort of just wanted to get your response at with Carney saying he will stand behind him, and then maybe just touch on, there was some saying that this Chiang wasn't really genuinely suggesting this, or it may have been a joke. So I just, if you can respond to those sort of defenses as well.
I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it'd be important for us to hear from our two colleagues here who are from diaspora communities, from the Uyghur community and the Hong Kong community.
Yeah, sorry, I should have clarified. That was who I was.
So I'd like to maybe, if you'd like to say something.
Maybe you
Catherine,
can
you
start,
first.
from Hong Kong community. Yeah.
Sure. I would first like to say that as an incumbent member of parliament and a former police officer, Paul Chiang should have known better. This is a situation that the Canadian government has issued statements on. GAC has come out and said that the arrest warrants and bounties targeting Canadians is unacceptable. They have condemned it. And so it would be I don't think it goes too far for Canadians to expect that an incumbent MP takes that seriously and acts accordingly. For it to be called a lapse in judgment or a joke, I think downplays the situation a little bit. This is a topic that he should have some expertise on, especially as a parliamentary secretary to immigration in the last government, where he was briefed on why there is a lifeboat scheme for Hongkongers leaving the territory because of human rights situations. So I think I expected more from Paul Chiang.
From Uyghur Canadians' perspective, as long as Paul Chiang is in the parliament, and that is a huge shadow for Uyghur Canadians to feel confident. And that person, as a former police officer and a current MP, his primary responsibility is to protect Canadian citizens and their rights. And what we've seen is totally opposite. And this is unacceptable. And not only for diaspora communities, it should be unacceptable for Liberal Party as well. And as I mentioned, one of the recommendation from the Justice Hog's report is to have a proper mechanism to monitor and scrutiny for the nomination process. And Paul Chiang's nomination shows that that process is not handled properly, or Liberal Party did not take the recommendation of Justice Hog's report seriously. And we cannot afford to continue like this. And he should be, either he should resign or Liberal Party should handle this situation as soon as possible.
And the Liberals are, like calls are mounting for them to drop a Liberal candidate who said that the, like a Conservative candidate who, the idea of, he said he was joking, and that the Conservative candidate should be turned into the Chinese consulate. He's a Hong Kong dissident. What do you make of this controversy, and do you consider it, for example, transnational repression?
So we're aware of the comments made, and I would say the comments don't fall under the mandate of the panel. The bounty against the other person is an example of transnational repression. The panel and site are monitoring as it relates to the bounty. I will note that the Minister of Foreign Affairs in December 2024 issued a statement deploring Hong Kong's decision to place bounties on the heads of democratic activists, including 2 Canadians. And GAC remains in touch with the 2 Canadians to provide them updates and offer support.
We'll go on to Christopher Nardi from the National Post.
So I just want to kind of piggyback on that. Have you seen efforts, or have you detected efforts from the PRC or their networks to try to coerce the 2 individuals who had bounties put on them, or even online campaigns, anything to try to either discredit them or bring them back to the PRC?
Maybe I'll look to Marissa and Vanessa.
What we saw was the content that was the news of the bounty was sort of re-upped, but we're just watching the open space for anything related to that. So that alone, I think, is a form of coercion. Spreading again the information about the bounty is precisely how malign foreign states seek to silence, harass, and coerce.
So just to be clear on that point, are you seeing an effort to to re-up that information coming from what appears to be a state-sponsored network? I just want to clarify. I'll ask another.
Let me get back to you with the answer on that, exactly where we're seeing it from.
And then otherwise, so very early, Ms. Kempton, anyone can answer this, you talked about growing threats against politicians, but I wanted to kind of circumscribe that in terms of time. Have you seen that since the beginning of the election, and of maybe all the phenomenon that you've mentioned, intensification of threats, you've mentioned disinformation, AI manipulation, et cetera, et cetera. What have you seen in particular maybe possibly sharpen or increase since, I'm forgetting the date, but day 1 of the election?
I don't know that we have seen things particularly sharpened since day one of the election. I do think we have seen, certainly over time, the last several months, the last year, I mean, disinformation remains on the rise continually in all aspects of society. And I think we have seen over the last couple of years a rise in threats and in attempts at intimidation of public figures, again, across the political spectrum. Maybe I'll turn to Greg at the RCMP if the RCMP has anything they'd like to add to that.
No, just to say that the RCMP is seized with the. Oh, can you hear me? I can. Yeah. So the RCMP is very well seized with the issue of threats to candidates. To be clear, the RCMP's protective mandate extends to the Prime Minister as well as the leaders of parties with standing in Parliament. And any determination for the extension of protective services is at the discretion of the Minister of Public Safety, that needs to designate an individual for such protection. That said, there is a new program for candidate security that is being led by PCO, and that is meant to address issues such as this, because the RCMP unfortunately cannot be everywhere all at once. Thank you.
Yeah, just to follow up a bit, you have seen over the past few years issues of intimidation of politicians. It's happened on Parliament Hill, it's happened in ridings. And if you look more generally around the world, you've seen peer countries where issues of tendencies towards violence have been seen. So it's with that in mind that the efforts of the RCMP are applied to, as Greg mentioned, to ministers and leaders of officially recognized parties. And the candidate security program is an additional layer of support that's being provided to candidates of all parties.
David Thornton from CBC.
Good morning, folks. I guess I just wanted to come back to the issue involving Paul Chiang. Ms. Kempton, you said that it's not in your purview, but is CITE at least concerned by those comments? And what do candidates do who face similar threats, whether serious or jokingly? What should candidates do if they're in a similar situation where they're being threatened in a similar way? So are you concerned at the very least, and what should candidates do if they're in that similar situation?
So I would say CITE is concerned about the bounty placed by Hong Kong on Mr. Tay. We are aware of the comments, as I said. In terms of what candidates should do, they should contact police of local jurisdiction in the immediate. They are also able to contact CITE and the RCMP if they have other concerns, and we will look at it from there. Vanessa, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that.
I think that's very well said. Thank you.
And the candidate who received that threat, Joe Tay, says he fears for his safety. Is the RCMP or any other agency reaching out to contact him?
Greg, would you like to respond to that?
I'd have to get back to you specifically on whether the RCMP has reached out to Mr. Tay. But to reiterate what Johann said, if candidates feel under threat, either immediate or not, I would encourage them to reach out to their police of jurisdiction, as well as the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, so that we can have a combined response to the real and perceived threats that they are feeling.
Jim Bronskill from the Canadian Press.
I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the candidate security program, when it was introduced and what it entails.
Happy to. The candidate security program is a new program that's been developed this year to help support candidates of all parties both recognized and not recognized if they feel a threat to their safety. It's intended to provide support for such things like campaign events and also should they feel a personal threat. It should be noted that it's part of a layered approach. I mean, Greg quite correctly noted that if a candidate feels their safety is threatened, reaching out to the police of local jurisdiction should be part of what they do. In addition to that, Elections Canada provides support for things like security alarms in constituency offices. And so what this does is it's just an extra layer of support in addition to, as Greg mentioned before, existing supports directly for, party leaders and ministers.
And maybe if I can interject as well too, beyond the sort of physical nature of the threat that candidates may experience, we also recognize that there can be an online component to this as well. So it's one of the reasons that within the Cyber Centre at CSC, we have a hotline available that candidates can contact 24/7 should they experience any cyber threats online.
The Prime Minister indicated today he had recently received a national security briefing in the last day or so, which is perhaps not surprising. I'm wondering if, to what extent you can talk about this, or whether it's within your ambit, whether the opposition leaders have been receiving similar briefings during the electoral writ period.
Well, I can speak to a portion of it, which is that last week, political parties received a security briefing of the threats at the classified level. These are the cleared party representatives of each of the parties. So that briefing took place late last week.
Okay, I'm looking here at Zoom. I don't see any raised hands. Another chance if anyone has a question. Okay. Okay, so Palak, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Hi, Mr. Tay said that he's been in touch with the RCMP, but do we know if he's taken advantage of the candidate security program? Is that something that maybe Lori, you can speak to?
Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, my question was whether or not Mr. Tay, he says that he's been in touch with the RCMP, but do we know whether he's taking advantage of the candidate security program? I think this might be a question for Ms. Kempton.
Thank you for the question. No, I am not aware. I don't know if he has taken advantage of the program. We'll have to come back to you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions.
Just as a follow-up.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Do you have a follow-up, Palak?
Yeah, thanks, Jude. Can you clarify, is this the candidate security program, is that under PCO or is that the one that's being offered by Elections Canada, or am I crossing my wires here?
It is the candidate security program that we just spoke about is under the Privy Council office. Elections Canada also has a program for candidate security as well. I would now like to pass the floor to my colleague Larissa Galadza, who will provide further information on digital transnational repression. Merci.
Thank you, Lorianne. My name is Larissa Galadza, and I am the Director General for Cyber Critical Technology and Democratic Resilience at Global Affairs Canada. One of my responsibilities is overseeing Rapid Response Mechanism Canada, or RRM Canada, which is Global Affairs representative on the Security and Intelligence Threat to Elections Task Force. RRM Canada was established in 2018 as part of Canada's G7 presidency at the time to counter foreign threats to democracies. This includes digital transnational repression, and I'll be talking to you about that today. The RRM's data analysts use open source data and research methods to monitor the global digital information ecosystem for foreign-backed information operations. Let me first describe transnational repression, or TNR, before moving on to its digital form. As Lauriane said, TNR is a form of foreign interference in which authoritarian foreign governments attempt to extend their own domestic repression beyond their borders to intimidate, coerce, harass, harm, and ultimately silence critics or those deemed a threat to their rule. It can take place in a variety of ways. These authoritarian regimes target members of diaspora and exile communities, particularly religious and ethnic minorities, human rights defenders, political dissidents, activists, students, scholars, and journalists. What is important here is that the actors behind transnational repression are foreign governments. We have seen this malign activity from a number of foreign states, and we have seen it around the globe and here in Canada. Now let me talk about how authoritarian foreign states perpetuate transnational repressions through the digital space. This kind of repression can take the form of online harassment and smear campaigns, largely through social media. It can also include doxing, where the private and identifiable information of targeted individuals is put into the public sphere without their consent. The intent is to fuel harassment and physical violence. As with more traditional or physical methods, digital forms of transnational repression are also used to induce compliance, to silence or discredit individuals, or to retaliate against dissent. And this form of repression is perpetrated through technology. Digital transnational repression is not new to us in Canada. The team at RRM Canada detected this kind of activity in recent years, and we've seen it increasing. In 2023, we informed the public about a targeted online information operation known as spamouflage. Spamouflage is a kind of spamming that hides nefarious content among everyday content to camouflage a hostile intent. Here's how it works. Hostile actors flood the information ecosystem with a large volume of content, such as videos, memes, or text, that discredit or embarrass the targeted individuals. This content is then amplified inauthentically by hijacked or faked accounts, also known as bots, which make this content more visible on social media platforms with the hopes that it will be further shared and engaged with. The operation in 2023 leveraged social media accounts for dozens of members of parliament from across the political spectrum and across Canada to make the content visible. Spam comments claimed that a critic of the Chinese Communist Party in Canada had accused the various members of parliament of criminal and ethical violations. RRM Canada assessed that the likely goal of this operation was, at least in part, to silence criticism of the Chinese Communist Party, to incentivize members of parliament to distance themselves from the critic, discrediting and discouraging wider online communities from engaging with them. RRM Canada also informed the public earlier this month of a new spamouflage operation, which has targeted several individuals in Canada. This new operation employs various tactics to intimidate, belittle, and harass individuals in Canada who are critical of the People's Republic of China. It includes the use of generative AI to doctor existing online content and then amplify it as a way to dox the targeted individuals. This is also the first known instance where the RRM detected spamouflage using sexually explicit deepfake photos to target an individual in Canada. When we see this activity, we take several steps to try and stop it. First off, we work with the National Counter Foreign Interference Coordinator at Public Safety Canada to alert targeted individuals so that they can take the steps necessary to protect themselves. The coordinator also proactively engages with communities and other affected individuals who are at risk of digital TNR. We also alert social media platforms where potentially harmful content about this individual is proliferating and where it may violate their terms and conditions. Decisions about what to do with this content is up to these individual social media platforms. We conduct diplomatic démarches to share relevant information and request that foreign states stop their malign activity. We may also engage other site members as needed, including law enforcement, to take appropriate action. And, of course, we continue to monitor incidents to understand how they are evolving in real time so that we can evolve our response. There are also steps that Canadians who feel they are vulnerable to digital TNR can take to protect themselves. First, they can do things to protect themselves online. Use strong and unique passwords. Carefully examine emails or text messages and think twice before opening an attachment or clicking on a link. Avoid using public Wi-Fi networks or Bluetooth, and avoid oversharing personal information online. Second, anyone in Canada who feels they are being targeted can go to police or to CSIS, say they believe the activity against them is transnational repression, and share the information they have. And of course, if someone is in immediate danger, they should call 911. RRM Canada is committed to protecting the integrity of these elections for Canadians and to keeping Canadians informed.